What's up, guys? Welcome in. It is time for your Cleveland Browns mock draft 2.0. I'm your host for today, Jacob at Roaches and 13. I got this episode and all of our great podcasts here on Network 216 are brought to you by our friends over at Homage Apparel. I got my Cleveland Browns, classic. I like this, the orange classic brownie, the elf. Link down in the description below if you want to check out Homage. I think they're the greatest. I really do. The Cavs, Guardians, Ohio State, all the NBA, all of the NFL, a lot of great products over there, softest in the business. So, guys, I'm ready to jump right on into it to bring you my second mock draft of the year. Probably every couple of weeks, we'll continue to do these. If you missed it, Monday, I released an episode with Browns Wire managing editor Corey Kennan talking about some defensive tackle prospects for the Cleveland Browns and in general. You guys can go over and check that out here on the YouTube as well. So I'm going to dive right into it. Disclaimer, just like the last one, these simulators don't have the Browns' third-round pick because one of the third-round picks that they will have, either theirs or the comp pick from the Kwesi hiring in Minnesota, will go to the Houston Texans because of the Deshaun Watson trade. And since comp picks haven't been awarded yet, it's assumed that it would be the regular third round pick. And so right now, none of these mocks really have the Browns' third round pick. So what you get right now is a second, 2 4s, 2 5s, a 6, and a 7. So for now, that's how these mocks are going to go. So just know that there are missing a pick, and that's my disclaimer off the top. I use NFL Mock Draft Database. I think it's really awesome because they take the averages of all these other mocks and all these other boards, and they kind of create this like super big board in my mind, because somebody might have a prospect in the 20s where somewhere else has them in the 80s, and so on Mock Draft Database they might be in the 40s because that's somewhere in the average in between. So that's why I like to use them. I'm going to say that I think this one might be a little bit more controversial than Mock Draft 1.0. And we're going to start right off at the top. In their second round pick, I got Dawand Jones, the right tackle from Ohio State. And I know that this may come out like was thinking about this all week, and I talked to Jack Duffin from the OBR. He's really big on wanting an offensive tackle. And the more I look at this, the more I think that offensive tackle goes early. And in this simulation, I had a starting right tackle that has a lot of really desirable traits fall to me in Dawand Jones. He's very interesting, some inconsistencies here and there. He's an absolute monster at 6'8", 350, 357, depending on where you find it. But when you look at a guy this size, you think, well, what about this? They pull a lot of their tackles. They pull their guards, their centers, their tackles. They need these mobile, athletic, able to move in space. What can Dawand Jones do at 357? Dawand Jones can move, and he can move better than you would think he would at that size. But the thing that I think is most important is that he is nasty in the run game. You're looking at a guy just like Wyatt Teller, playing right next to Wyatt Teller. At 6'8", 357, he gives you exactly what you think, but he can move in space if the Browns need him to do that. He's got some more refinement because of his size. Sometimes he does play a little high, does get a little bit off balance. He can get driven back as a result because being 6'8", you tend to not be able to play with a low pad level. So sometimes it gets a little bit high, but sliding into the second round, you get a right tackle with a decent bit of experience. I don't think Jack Conklin comes back. I don't know what's going on with James Hudson, because there was periods of time with James Hudson where they were playing Chris Hubbard, not playing James Hudson, and I'm just not really sure where he falls. I really like Hudson, but maybe he does start, and maybe Dawand Jones learns a little bit, or he is the swing tackle. But I do think we have seen with some of the injuries to the Browns line this year that you've got to have more depth. And really they got hammered at center, and then later hammered essentially at guard as well with the Dunn injuries and the Froholt, moving, and then losing 2 centers and all this stuff. So I think offensive lineman goes off the board soon. And if someone like Dawand Jones from Ohio State falls in the second round, I could really see the Browns doing that. That was the pick I know everybody will love. The second pick here, which will be in their first of the fourth round, I got Marvin Mims, the wide receiver from Oklahoma. There is one word that has been on Browns Twitter for years, since Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, when talking about a wide receiver: we need more speed. Well, Marvin Mims has got all the speed you need. If you go watch any highlights, go watch any tape, or go read any draft guide or any scouting report online right now, you're going to see one word repeated over and over when talking about Marvin Mims: explosive, 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 explosive. This dude just jumps off the line of scrimmage. At some points, he's so quick off the line of scrimmage that they're like, did you get a head start there, man? Are you sure the ball was snapped before you started moving? Like, you sure about that? But no, I do. I really like Marvin Mims. He can play, inside, outside, a little bit smaller, 5'11", but that stereotypical build for an explosive, speedy receiver. And he can turn it on, like I said, really quick off the line of scrimmage. And he's got short line speed, long speed, reliable hands. And he can, primarily slide into that slot role with DPJ and Amari Cooper playing the outside roles. And I think that someone with his level of speed and explosiveness can unlock the next level of this offense. And with a full year of Deshaun Watson under center, I think that's exactly what the Cleveland Browns need. Shifting to the next, another one that everybody wants at position. So the second, fourth round pick, I got Colby Wood. I always say Wooden and it's Wooden, I believe, but I apologize, Colby, if I'm saying your name wrong. The defensive tackle from Auburn. Now, what I know is you guys will Google this and you'll see he's like 280. He's not the 330-pound mauler I keep telling you guys I want in the middle of that line, but he fits what the Browns keep telling us they want. He is an interior pass rusher. He has some inside-outside flexibility. He's not exactly the same body type, but kind of think back to last year with Logan Hall coming out of Houston that got a lot of buzz, ends up going, relatively early, a lot earlier than the fourth round. And he was a guy that could play inside, outside. That's what Wooden can do. He plays some edge, plays in the interior. He needs a little bit more size if he's going to be an every down defensive tackle. But I think in this situation, I think one or two veterans are getting signed by the Browns. I don't think they're going to keep going to the well as much as I want Maze Smith and I want Byron Young. I'm not sure they're going to go that direction just based off of what they've showed us in 3 years, taking these middle third and fourth round defensive tackles for 3 straight years. I can see him doing it again, trying to get another pass rush specialist to replace probably Jordan Elliott, who's just not been successful in that role. And I think Wooden can be in that role. And so I think maybe if they sign a couple of veterans that they end up going with a pass rushing specialist. And I think Colby Wooden from Auburn, I will say at Alabama, he would be very upset if he knew I was saying that right now. I think he's pretty good. So moving on to our first pick of the 5th round, I got Tyke Smith, the other Smith, safety from Georgia. I like Chris Smith a lot as well. But he comes in the 5th round. Tyke Smith's had some injuries and some things that have held him back, but he plays all over the field. He can play that the kind of center field free safety that the Browns are missing. They may not go Smith's way just because I don't think his best position is necessarily to always be a center fielding deep free safety. And I think that is kind of what Cleveland needs. But he's a jack of all trades. He can play in the slot. He's played some corner. He's played some backer. He's played strong safety, free safety. They move him all over. He's very versatile in getting people out of that Georgia secondary. That Georgia defense is really, really good. So if you can give me a player from that, I don't think, depending on which one it is, I feel pretty good that I would like any of them. And so I just think they need to add more talent at safety, especially guys that can really play free safety. And I think Smith can do that as a role player, as maybe the 3rd or 4th safety on your team. Moving to the 2nd of the 5th round pick, Brenton Cox Jr., the edge rusher from Florida. This one comes with a bit of a disclaimer. And that is that there's been some off the field things with Brenton Cox. And that is why in this simulation, he falls to the Browns in my simulation well into the 5th round. So he's been dismissed twice. He starts out at Georgia. He gets dismissed there for an arrest for marijuana possession. And so, eventually he transfers, he goes to Florida. And then this year, after starting off relatively well, he threw a punch in the end zone as he was after he was horse collared on a Georgia touchdown. And he was dismissed from the Florida Gators program. So Now, this is a guy going into the season that a lot of draft people talked about as a top 50 talent in the potentially in the 2023 NFL draft before getting dismissed again. Now, a handful of years ago, I might have told you when Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski first came here, that I wouldn't think the Cleveland Browns would go in this direction, that I don't think they would get a guy with some character concerns. But they now showed us in back-to-back years that if they think the talent is good enough and if they think that that behavior and those things are behind him, that they'll go for it. First you get Malik McDowell and then Deshaun Watson. And, both of them, well, McDowell was in prison. Watson for a while people thought he might get criminal charges, and he ends up not. And so when you look at this, there's criminal charges for marijuana possession, and then there's throwing a punch, which you can't do. But I do think when the Browns look at it, they're going to see a guy that a lot of people had, like I said, is a top 50 talent. He's more of an outside linebacker style rusher, kind of like TJ Watt. He's of that same build, under 250. He can play a little bit in the run game, a little bit in coverage, but he's a really nice athlete. I mean, he's really explosive off the edge. He gets after the quarterback, and, he started off I think he only played a couple of games this year. He had 2 sacks and like 3 or 4 tackles for loss. He's a good player. You just have to decide, are all of these things behind him, or is it going to continue to, do little things that may reflect some immaturity, like throwing punches and things like that. And he gets horse collared, but, and they always get the guy who retaliates, but, you can't throw a punch in a football game regardless of situation, unfortunately. So moving on, we got 2 picks left, guys. 2 picks left for Mock Draft 2.0. A little bit of a programming note coming up next week. I will sit down with Dog Pound Daily editor Randy Gurzy, and we will talk to you about some wide receiver prospects for the Cleveland Browns. I will mention Marvin Mims again in that, go a little bit more in depth than I am right now. Those individual position rooms are a little bit longer videos because I bring a guest on to talk some of their guys too. And just a programming note going overall, we're going to go through all of these position groups, and then we're going to circle back and talk about some players at position groups that I don't want to see in Cleveland, some draft prospects that I'm not very high on. So I go with Servokia Dennis, who is a linebacker from Pittsburgh. He comes in that same build of Tony Fields and the same build of JOK as these smaller athletic linebackers that can, with great speed and acceleration, that can range side to side. The Browns may be looking for a bigger Mike linebacker, especially if they don't re-sign Anthony Walker. So Dennis might not be on the menu for them necessarily, because he didn't do a lot in the run game all that often. He can't shed blocks. It's the same issues with JOK and Tony Fields this year, especially when the defensive tackles did not keep them clean. The linemen were able to climb to the next level and block him. So Dennis is not going to fix that, but he can play some special teams, and he's got that skill set to, maybe play some of that will backer for if Tony Fields or JOK need a little breath there and stuff like that. So I got Dennis, the linebacker, there. 231. I don't see this happening, but some of these mocks, I'm telling you, some of these simulators, when you do them, you are shocked who is there in certain places. So in the final round, I had Mayan Williams from Ohio State, the running back, and that I was like, all right, if he's going to be, I really don't see that happening. I could see some of the injuries, and maybe he's a little bit undersized, and maybe he's not completely a 3-down back in the NFL, at least not initially. Maybe if that's what they're projecting him and he's falling all the way down there. But I think the Cleveland Browns, I think Dearness Johnson, they might re-sign him. I don't know if they will, but I know Kareem Hunt's not going to be here. Dearness Johnson's probably not going to be here. Jerome Ford's probably your number 2, Nick Chubb, and then you're just getting a depth guy. And I think Mayan Williams has shown in Ohio State when he was healthy, especially this year, that he can be a home run hitter. And I think he can be exactly what you need for a special teamers, maybe a returner, that sort of thing. Or maybe Jerome Ford continues to return kicks. And so you get a little bit of insurance for drafting Mayan Williams. So guys, that is it. That is Cleveland Browns Mock Draft 2.0 here on Network 2 on 6. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below what you liked, what you hated, what you would have done differently, which position group you want us to focus on. What are some prospects that you guys like? I'd love to hear from you guys. So you can find me on Twitter at Roachism13. So send me some DMs, and you can be as nice to me or as mean as you want. I am here for whatever you need me to be nice or to be mean, and just to let it all out. I understand that happens to the best of us. So guys, if you are on watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Please give us a thumbs up. It helps us so much. We're in our push to 1,000 before we know it. So I appreciate all of you guys. The most valuable thing you can give someone is some of your time. So thank you yet again for giving some of yours to me. Thank you very much. And as always, go Browns.